Okay, let's do this. With total honesty, I have been postponing recording this episode because I'm like, where do I even begin? Like, when I think about my near-death experience, that was a walk in the park compared to what I've been through in the last year and a half, 2 years of going through a dark night of the soul. Like, that's just to give you context of I'm going to try to put as much of me in this podcast, as much, you know, detail and share with you very honestly what I've moved through. And I think that I will be coming back and doing another episode on the more integration of it. But it's just so much that I'm like, where do I even start? Like, oh my goodness. If anybody would have told me, hey, Daniela, you're about to go into the deepest period of transformation of your entire life. And if I knew that it was going to feel like what it felt like, I would have been like, no, gracias. I would have been like, no, thank you. I skip. Like, I don't care about it. I don't want it. Thank you very much. And so in a way, I was actually happy that while I was going through this dark night of the soul, which I will tell you in a little bit what that means, I didn't know that I was going through it. It just felt like I was hitting the wall in the sense of like nothing was working the way that it used to work. Like everything that I was putting effort in was not working the way that it used to. And it was a series of events that led to just more frustration, more feeling lost, more getting out of control, not myself, but like things getting out of my control, me losing sense and in direction of myself, of my life. It felt like everything was being stripped away from me and that I had no power like I used to anymore. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, please somebody explain to me, why does this feel so hard? Anyway, so let's back up a little bit. I'm just going to start from the beginning. And the reason why I also wanted to share this, it's because by the time that I found out that this is what I was moving through, I was very late on the stages already. Like I was almost about to come out into the integrational period. Again, I'll break that down for you. But in a way, I was like, I wish that I would have known that that was a process that I was moving through in a way. But also in a way, I was like, thank God I didn't know, because I would have been like, this is bullshit. Anyway, but what I did want at the time, it was like, I wanted more information. By the time I found out that this is what I was moving through, because I had never been through a dark night of the soul, so I had no idea what it was. And I heard of the term when people talk about, spiritual transformation and, the deep, like long lasting transformations that change you as a person. But I never been through one, so I really had no idea what it was. And by the time I found out what it was, I wished there was more information. Like I only found maybe a few stories here and there and a few articles here and there about what it was and the stages and everything. But I was like, I just wish more people shared, because that shit, it's like messy. Like it's not pretty. And when you're in it, it feels so isolating. Like I think that's one of the biggest things that I felt. Like I felt isolated in the process because, it's intense. Let's put it that way. And so I wanted to share this episode because when I found out about it, I was like, I'm going to share it. Like when I'm out of this and I have a little bit more perspective, I'm going to be sharing what I've moved through. So here's what I want to say. Not everybody is going to move through a dark night of the soul in their lifetime. So if you are one of those people, lucky for you. I'm so happy for you. That is freaking amazing. Even if you haven't been moved through like a dark night of the soul, or it's not within your lifetime to move through one, I feel like it's still this episode. You're going to find a lot of nuggets because even if it's not as intense for you, I feel like there's still many like spiritual keys here that will help you in any kind of like mini transformation or aha moments, or if you're moving through a period of like transformation. If you're like, I'm going for that next level, I am evolving from who I used to be, I'm becoming her, I am going into this stage in my life, a new era is here for me. Like this episode, it's going to be really useful for you. If you are in the middle of a dark night of the soul, this episode is going to come in like a blessing, because I'm going to share with you from my heart, and I'm going to send you a giant big hug and just wrapped you with so much love because you're moving through one of the most powerful phases of your entire life. And I'm going to give you a lot of insights on how to move through it in a way that perhaps is less horrible. Because honestly speaking, like when we don't know that we're moving through it, like I didn't know, I definitely made things harder for myself. And whatever, that was my journey, right? But maybe for you, it doesn't have to be like that. Anyway, or if you have never been through a dark night of the soul, save this for a rainy day. Perhaps it's in your future. I don't know. But if you ever need this kind of support, just save this episode for a rainy day. Or if you know that somebody else is moving through this, like a friend of yours or somebody that you're like, this sounds familiar, just send it to that person. Perhaps this is just like the God blessing thing that they're waiting for, and you are the one who's meant to deliver it. So one thing that I do want to say, and I am not an astrology expert by any means, okay? So please don't take me as an astrology expert because I don't know. The only thing that I do know is all that I've researched about my own chart when it comes to astrology, because I love like researching about my chart. And when I work with people one-on-one, when we're aligning to their soul's purpose and aligning to who they truly are, in order for me to guide them strategically and spiritually, I do look at their chart because, of course. And so, but again, it's not like I've studied astrology or anything like that. I've studied my chart. And so if you do know astrology, astrologically speaking, what was happening for me in the last 2 years is that I had two very, very big transits. What does it mean when you have transits in your chart? It just basically means that you're being impacted by certain energies. And so the two energies that I was being impacted by was a Pluto transit and a Saturn transit. And so the Pluto energy is the energy of death and rebirth. It's the energy of deep, like fucking for real transformation. And so I was going through that. And those transits are not like fleeing, meaning they're not like maybe 1 month or 2 months. They are like Pluto transit in my chart was like almost like 2 years. And the other transit that was going on was Saturn. And Saturn is the planet. I mean, again, it's not like I'm an expert on this or anything, but what I know is that it's a planet that's here to show you your true power. So it's going to strip away anything that's not your true power and that you're dependent on, and that perhaps you've gained validation or success or recognition, but it was not truly from a true authentic place. It was from this defense mechanism or shadow parts of you that are not your true self. And so it's going to show you where you're using force, when you're using ego, when you're using shadow to gain what you want. And it's going to show you how to not use that and come back into your true self so that you can live more authentically to you. But when you're moving through that, it feels like the whole world is against you, which again, it's not. But that's like a lot of the times how I felt like if I'm going to be honest. Anyway, so that was what's going on in my astrology chart. Maybe you can look into some of that stuff if you're feeling like right now life is not like playing out for you as easily. Like you can look into your chart and see if that's something that's moving for you. Anyway, what's the dark night of the soul? So basically, what I just said when it comes to this transits in my astrology chart, like a dark night of the soul is the deepest transformation that you can move through, is the ultimate death of your ego. It's when everything that it's not yours will be stripped away. You will feel like you're losing control, like you don't know where you're going, like you don't know who you are, like you cannot bend your will as you used to. It's basically shaking you to strip you away from the ego, what's not truly yours, what's not in alignment with you, your programmed self. It's like stripping you naked, basically. And so I'm going to go through like the different stages of what it looks like to go through like this kind of transformation. And one thing that I know about it, like coming out of it and being almost like, I'm in the integrational phase, and I'm going to, of course, talk about what that means, but that's the last stage. And honestly speaking, I really am not the same person. Like, I am not the Daniela that entered this stage in any way. Like, I feel like physically, of course, I have gone through a bit of transformation. Like, I think energetically, I can see it. A lot of people have reflected that back to me, that like just my energy and the way that I looked has changed. And internally, I think that's the biggest piece. Internally, I feel so different. I feel like I finally found home within, fulfillment within. I feel that I am just operating from a different energy, and that it was so necessary. Like, I know that I said that if I would have known that this was going to take that kind of journey, I would have said no, thank you. But now I am actually really grateful for that journey because it changed me. It did. And it brought me back to myself in such a deep, fulfilling way. It's hard to explain. It really is. So if you're if you're in the thick of it right now and you're going through a very deep personal transformation, in the moment it's so hard to be grateful for it. But if your soul chose for you to go through that transformation, it's because, first of all, you're powerful enough, you're capable enough. And what's on the other end of it is pure fucking magic. Pure magic. I don't think that I would have been able to transform so rapidly if it wasn't this whole process showing me so intensely where I had abandoned myself, where I had like let my ego lead the way, when I had created personas to protect myself. And so I feel now that I'm just closer to my heart, closer to myself, closer to my truth. I feel so full of energy, not from external validation, but from myself. One of the things that in that period I did also, like I'm going to share the whole journey, but I started to work with a psychologist. And one of the things that she said to me was like, you felt misunderstood because you didn't understand yourself. And that hit in my heart so deeply because as somebody that has done so much personal development and so much inner work, the truth is I was still not seeing myself. I was seeing the parts that I liked, but I was not seeing the parts that I didn't like so much. And maybe I was seeing them, but I was not honoring them, which meant that they went into my shadow, which meant that I was trying so hard for those pieces of me to just get the fuck out. And that's not how it works when it comes to healing, when it comes to coming back to wholeness, when it comes to transformation. It's about integrating and loving and seeing all parts of who you are and allowing them to live within you, because what you don't own about yourself owns you. And that is the dark night of the soul. That everything that is owning you right now, every shadow, every protective mechanism, it's going to come to the surface and it's going to show you where you're not accepting, loving, and unconditionally honoring your value, your truth, and who you truly are. And so, with that said, that was a lot. But with that said, the first thing that happens when you're going through, and I have a little bit of notes, so I maybe like be looking at them. The first thing when you're going through a like this kind of dark night of the soul, the first thing that happens is the first stage of it is the triggering disruption. It's like this, like, it's not a something that happened and then, you know, I transform. Like, it's not as rapid as that. It's almost like a slow transit. It's a slow transformation. And oh my God, did I want it to be faster? Because I'm like, can this just leave already? Can I just find out the aha moment already? Can I just get over this and past this already? So the thing about this is like deep, long-lasting transformation takes time, and that's the truth of it. And, you know, you and I probably don't like that because, you know, we don't, but it's the ultimate truth. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take time. Like, oh gosh, it is what it is. Anyway, so the first piece of it is that there is like it could be one big thing that begins to trigger, like an event that triggers this entire journey. For me, it was about two very important events, or not so much events, but relationships that triggered a almost like a breakdown internally. But sometimes, or at least for me, it was quiet. It was not like I could see it right away. Oh my God, this is really what's going to like be the death of me, basically. Because now that I say it, oh my God, was that true? Like, I did not see those situations, those relationships, those dynamics being the end of me at all. But now, looking back 2 years ago and what's happened in the last 2 years, like I can really see, okay, I see, the events that really triggered me beginning to crumble in a way. And so when it comes to a dark night of the soul, the first stage is that you're going to have, maybe one or a couple of things that are going on that are triggering you, like are getting you out of your comfort zone. Like the way that it felt, it was like you begin to be in like a bit of a tug war, like things are beginning to feel like heavy and not in flow anymore and not aligned anymore. And it feels like, what the heck? Like, I don't know, I'm just like uncomfortable. You begin to feel really uncomfortable. Like things are maybe not great and you are feeling something that feels really off. And that's what begins to like initiate this stage of being uncomfortable, being like, what is going on? And things begin to crumble. What used to work in the past doesn't work anymore. What used to just come with ease perhaps is not coming with ease anymore. You feel resistance towards the way that you've been doing things, resistance towards who you have been and how you've been operating. So you just begin to feel resistance, like uncomfortability in your own life. One thing that I want to say, that all of this for me happened, like one of the triggering events is that I hit an upper limit. And I talk about this in another episode where I talk about the stretching phase, and I really go into what has been for me to integrate that like a stretching phase of the next level without forcing it, and how I have integrated the next level in a way that feels authentic. And I also talk about some myths that people talk about when it comes to like becoming her and embody your future self, and what the fuck does that actually mean. So if you are interested in that, there's another episode that's called it's something about the moving through your next level without forcing it. Okay. So by the time, like one of the big events that triggered this for me was an upper limit, meaning like I had gotten to a lot of success and things were going great for me. And, I made more money than I've ever made. Like I was on quote unquote top of the world, and things felt like I'm going to lose them at any time. Or I don't know if like, how did I even do this? Like I began to question myself. I began to feel like I didn't know how to hold it all. I didn't know how I was going to do it again. I began to feel really unsafe. That was the piece. I began to feel really unsafe in that upper limit. And of course I wanted more, but I just in that moment felt like, how do I, carry this and continue this and even access something else? And so I began to have the symptoms of an upper limit, the symptoms of like you begin to almost sabotage your own growth because you're like, I don't know if this feels good. I don't know if this is the way that I want to go about it. Especially if when we got to a certain level of our business, of our growth, of our success, where we have used certain parts of ourselves, which is great. I'm not saying that that's wrong at all, but I'm saying that for our next level, depending on what our journey is, sometimes we got to get rid of, or not rid of. That's really not what I wanted to say. But sometimes we got to heal parts of ourselves to feel safe in that next level. And so I was hitting an upper limit. That's one of the things that was happening. And so I began to almost like feel uncomfortable, really uncomfortable in where I was doing and how I was navigating things. And another thing that I also began to feel in that stage is that I was feeling very self-conscious. And I'm not really a person, like in my natural state, I'm not really a person that's like very self-conscious in a way. Like I'm like any other person, right? Where I have a little bit of fear sometimes. And, sometimes I'm afraid of sharing certain things or whatever, but that has never really like hold me back. I have never been somebody that is extremely anxious. Yes, I have a personality because I'm a Virgo and a bit of a perfectionist that sometimes I tend to like maybe worry about things a little bit too much, but nothing that is like something that blocks my life or that stopped me from going for what I want or for getting things done. And in this period, I feel like I was extra nervous, extra self-conscious. I was feeling insecure within myself. I was uncomfortable. I didn't like the ways that I was speaking. It just began to feel like, what the heck? And everything began to crumble. Crumble in like, I just kind of lost this connection that I had with my purpose and my power and what I was doing. I just feeling like a little bit like losing direction. And one of the things that we do when we're quote unquote feeling like we're losing direction, we're losing a sense of purpose, we grasp. We hold on. I'm going to hold on more because I don't know where I'm going. This just feels like I don't even know what's going on. And so what we do is that we kind of hold and we control and we force. And that was me. I began to just get even more controlling, and I began to try to force things more and try to go in a direction that I, in a way, was like, this feels off, but because everything feels off, I'm just might as well just going to do this, and I don't know if you ever felt this way. It's like, just because everything feels like a little bit off, you're like, whatever. I mean, it's just going to feel a little bit off. So in the time, I was still holding on to an idea. I was still really afraid of letting go. I was like holding on to things and I didn't want to lose control. I was like holding on for dear life. I was like, I'm not going to lose the things that I've built. I'm not going to lose all of these things. I'm not going to lose control. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to like force and do more and like focus and try to like control and strategize. And, this is the part that is a shadow of what I talk about with my clients a lot about when we go into this hyper masculine, that is just a way of controlling when we feel out of control, but that's not really the way to lead. Because what we're truly doing is that we are in protective mode. We're in shadow mode. And so I totally went into that because I was like, I'm going to control more. I'm going to like, maybe there is something missing that is outside of me. And here's the piece. I thought that it was something missing outside of me. So I was just looking for more answers and looking for more strategy and looking for more things outside of myself and hearing everybody else and like really trying to quote unquote make it work. But internally, it felt like shit. Internally, it felt like, it doesn't feel good. It's just like nothing, but I was ignoring totally what I was feeling in my body, which I think has been one of the biggest things for me, that I have had to love myself in the fact that while I was moving through that period, it was like the first time in my life, at least that I can remember, that I was completely ignoring my intuition. Like my body told me the whole way, like things don't feel good. This is a little bit off. My intuition was talking to me really loudly about certain things. I chose to ignore. I definitely chose to ignore. And now I know that it was part of the process. Like I was meant to ignore those things at the time because I need to see how bad it gets when I do ignore my intuition. I needed to hit rock bottom, which is the next piece, the next stage. So the first stage is the triggering disruption, like when things begin to feel out of control and you're trying to force it because you're trying to hold on for dear life and you feel a loss of direction. You feel almost like uninspired because I began to feel disconnected from my business, from my purpose. And I began to just hit rock bottom. And hitting rock bottom for me was, again, since I can remember, during that period of the rock bottom, I've never been so disconnected to spirituality. Like I didn't want to have spiritual talks. I didn't want to talk to my soul. I was not doing energy work. Everything that, even yoga, like everything that literally gave me life force, that was my connection, my direction, everything that I, that basically got me to where I was, I let it go. I didn't want to know anything about it. And it's part of the process because you're kind of stripping away. Like I've heard a lot of the times that when you're going through a dark night of the soul and you're stripping the ego, a lot of the times you can feel disconnected to spirituality. You can feel disconnected to, like, you just don't believe in anything. You're just kind of like, you're losing hope. You're losing hope. And when you hit that rock bottom, of course, it can feel like depression. It can feel like nothing makes sense, that you're just lost inspiration, that you lost yourself. I remember just saying, like, I don't feel myself. Like, I don't feel like I'm myself. I just, I have moments of reminders of who I am. And, all to say, it was crazy last night because I was about to upload one of the recordings for the podcast, the first recording. And I was like, oh my God, the last time that I uploaded a podcast episode was exactly 2 years ago. February 2023 was the last time that I uploaded a podcast episode, and is February 2025. Like, holy shit, did I go through a transformation? I lost the sense of direction. I lost the sense of purpose, of connection. The rock bottom feels really, really dark, and it's not easy. And it's a scary place to be. It is. And again, now that I know all of this, like, I have so much respect for myself of how I handle that and how I move through that, and how I never abandon myself or quit this entire journey. Like, my commitment towards myself, I have so much respect for myself. And I think that's also a big part of how I feel so different nowadays, because it's like, I have so much respect for the woman that I've become, and I've gathered so much wisdom on those moments. And like I'm saying now, it was heavy, it was dark, it was depressing, it was like, what the fuck is happening? The what the fuck moments were like so constant. But again, I do not regret any of it. It did not feel good, but I do not regret it. Actually, I'm very grateful for that journey and what it taught me about myself and about my leadership and about my purpose. And one of the most important things in rock bottom was that I really needed to go so against the things that I teach, so against my truth, so against leading with your intuition, listening to your body, connecting to your spirituality, like energy first, strategy second. Like, I went against all of it in many ways. And I needed to see what that does, because I don't know if it happens to you, but sometimes we get to question ourselves, or we question ourselves, and like, what if I did it differently? Like, is it what I believe true? Should I follow my intuition? Should I not? And so I needed to go all the way in the other direction in order to show myself how bad it can get when I do not trust myself, when I don't follow my path, when I don't listen to my body, when I don't allow higher guidance and divine alignment to be my path. Like, my brand is called Divine Alignment. And so I went so far on the other end to be able to show myself, listen, this is not the path, or is it? So when I went to like rock bottom, and I was just like, I remember this moment when I was sitting in front of my mirror, and I was just crying in front of my mirror and praying for some light, praying for some like support, clarity. I was just like, what is happening, and why does this feel so heavy? Like, what do I do? And I remember that moment so deeply, because I looked myself in the eyes and I was like, I want to see you. I want to see you. I want to love you. I want to be here for you. Just tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. Tell me what's going on. And that was the beginning of that conversation with myself so deeply. That was the beginning of not just going against the current and trying to force things into will, but it was actually a reconnection to my body, love for myself, connection to my body, communication back again with my body, with my intuition, with my energy. It was like a recognition of self again. And that's when I was like, I've got to surrender. Like, I really have got to surrender. And it's not like in that moment, all of a sudden I woke up the next day and I was like, okay, surrendered. Like, it's not like that. But in that moment, I began to soften. And the moment I began to soften after that, like, deep rock bottom. And I mean, I could go into so much detail on this, which I'm not going to, because there's things that are still very personal to me. But the rock bottom for me was the moment where it literally like felt like I lost everything. I lost everything. Like, literally felt like that. Again, without going into like very deep personal stuff, like, I felt like I lost so much. I was not connected to my business the way that I was. Like, I still had clients and things like that last year. But that's when I say that I had like an official break from business, because I was having the clients that I had, but I didn't launch big things last year. I had like maybe one launch at the beginning of the year, and that was it. And other than that, I really just barely put things out there until the end of the year where I was doing, where I did a workshop and things like that. But I was just like, basically like not officially out of business because I refused to almost like accept that in a way. But when I began to accept what was moving through, I was like, yeah, like definitely I'm taking a break. Like it's not that it's an option for me. Like there's a lot of things that I'm working through that basically are just showing me what's next for me. Funny thing, and is just coming through right now. I remember that 2 years ago, I don't know, like sometime around that time, I remember thinking, listen, I have the stories of my near-death experience and I've been telling them forever. I have the stories of my awakening of my psychic abilities and going to Bali and all of that process. And I have so many beautiful stories. That's amazing. And I've been telling them for a while, like, I need new stories. Be careful what you ask for because I got stories. I've got stories. And holy shit, I'm grateful that those stories came, and I'm grateful to have so much to share with you nowadays. And I will be sharing more and more and more, of course, as I continue to integrate more. But did I get my story? And so anyway, first one is when you're triggered and there's that disruption. Then you go into this like rock bottom. That is the moment where you like rock bottom ends when you surrender. And sometimes I try to surrender before it was time, and it was still like not time. Like I still was holding on somehow. But I remember exactly like my lowest point, which was probably the day before I was in my mirror, like crying and asking for like, okay, what do I need to like, how do I need to see you? What do I need to show up? Like, show me the way. And I ask myself again, like, show me the way. Like I ask myself, I ask my guides, I open up like my spiritual energy again, which I had shut down for a while. But the day before that mirror happened, something really, 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 really strong happened that stripped away my ego. That basically, it was like my most vulnerable moment where it literally felt like, holy shit, I've lost everything. Like I cannot continue to pretend that things are okay because the truth is something is going on, and I need support. And when I say I need support, it's that I began to lean into my family, my friends. I began to be a little bit more open about what was going on and be a little bit more outspoken about the hard times that I was moving through. Because the first stage when things are like disrupting and being a little bit like, what the fuck is going on? One of the things about that is like because you don't know what you're going through, and it can feel very isolating because especially when you're not allowing yourself to share, like, is this depression? Is this like a momentary thing? Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, you don't really know. And so it can feel really isolating at the beginning when you're moving through this because you really don't know what's going on. And so you're a little bit quiet about it and you're still going through life, and people can literally see you like nothing is going on. Like everything looks like normal, but you inside, because this is an internal transformation. And so deep inside within you, you're like, I'm just like something, it's trying to like fight each other inside of me. And it just feels like hard, like a struggle, Anyway, so in that rock bottom, the moment where I began to surrender, the moment when I opened up my spiritual abilities again, I remember, that day in the mirror saying to myself, what do you need? Just show me the way. I'm here. I'm listening. It was the first time that I was like, I'm not going to look for answers outside of myself, because I know that like in that moment, just because I tried so many other things and it was not working, finally, I was like, okay, finally, I'm just going to give myself my own medicine. And that was the moment that changed everything for me, because that was the moment where I returned back home, where I was like, finally, I was valuing the things that I've been teaching forever in a way that truly honor my power and my knowing and everything. So it was like, I'm going to show you how bad it's going to get. I'm going to show you. Like it was almost like that energy, until I was like, okay. I'm going to value myself. I'm going to trust myself again. I'm going to say yes, even though at the moment it was scary. Like I'm going to say yes to my intuition. I'm going to begin to listen to my body. I'm going to begin to, do the things that I know how to do to get myself back. I'm gonna literally begin to value those things, because it got to a point, right before this entire thing happened, when I was hitting my upper limit and, having incredible success and things were going great and whatever, that at some point I began to question, like, are my things actually real? Like, is this good? Like, I began to question my work. And again, that is a symptom of an upper limit, because when you don't feel safe getting to a certain level of success or to a certain level of money or to a certain level of visibility, all of a sudden you're going to begin to use protective mechanisms to bring you back into where you feel safe. And so one way to get me out of what I was going forward and towards was to question what I was doing. So I began to question what I was doing. I began to be like, maybe this doesn't work. Like, what else do I need to do? Maybe I need to know more. I began to look for answers outside of myself. And that's when things went south. And so in this rock bottom, I think what really shifted for me was that moment where I was like, there's nothing else that I could have tried. Like, I was so tired. This entire thing, this first two stages are so tiring, like energetically draining, mentally exhausting, like these two stages. And one thing that I do want to say, I think that everybody moves through this transition a little bit better, although the stages are quite the same, but it depends on how much you are, like how stubborn you are, that these can feel harder for certain people than others. Because for me, for example, I was really stubborn and I really truly wanted to find other answers outside of myself, because that's how much I didn't want to accept the fact that I have value, the fact that I am enough, the fact that what I teach and what I am here for is the truth for me and the truth for many people. And so I went so far outside of myself to try to not see what I needed to see, which was I was not valuing my work. I was not valuing myself. I was not loving myself. I was externally focused. And so depending on where you are in your journey, and what you're working through, this can feel sometimes different. This can feel not so hard and not so intense. I mean, my soul tends to go for really intense things. So that makes sense that my journey was like so hard. And also because I'm really stubborn. So I really didn't want to let go. But once I was able to move through the rock bottom, I began to do a series of things that was what brought me back. And I remember I went through a mini depression while I was moving through the breakup of my 10-year relationship a couple of years back. And so I remember it was a very short period of quote unquote depression, because it was another big transition for me. I was in a 10-year relationship and we broke up, and it was a very beautiful breakup, but still such a hard period to move through that. And so in that period, I went through a little bit of a depression, and I remember how I got myself back from that, like, because in that moment, I knew what I needed to do, and I just did it. And it took a little bit of time for my whole energy and my aura and my connection and my full radiance to come back. But I did it, and it was very beautiful. And so this time I had the proof that I had already done that in the past, and that I was going to do it this time for myself as well. So I'm going to record another episode where I'm going to share with you what I did in terms of like what routines, what exercises, what energy movements I did, like what are the things that got me again back on my feet, because I died. Like honestly speaking, between you and I, in this period, I died. I lost a lot. I was exhausted. I was tired. I was drained. I was disconnected. And so for me, it was like this whole process, and this is the third stage, is that process of reconnection, is that process of remembering, is that process of coming back, which is the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece. That is that process of remembering. Like you begin to remember who you are. You begin to remember where you abandon yourself. You begin to remember what matters to you. And is that process of like rebuilding yourself, rebuilding, remembering, beginning to see things from a different light. And in this process, I also was a process when I decided to see a psychologist to help me with my psyche, because the truth is when you're moving through this, your psyche can play a lot of games with you. And so I also needed somebody to help me stay really clear in my mind as I was moving with I was also working with my energy, and I was also working with my body. My healing, my transformation has been holistic. And this is the piece that I am bringing now into my programs and into my practice and into my work, that it's not just one piece. It's not just like the psychology that helped me. It's not just the energy that helped me. It's not just the body work that helped me and the trauma somatics that helped me. It was all together. And so in my work, like I've learned so much through trying different things that work and that didn't, that all of it I'm putting together now in my new program, Becoming Her. And I'm so proud and excited about being able to teach something that I've embodied, that I have learned through my own experiences, and I have put together very uniquely to help you in that becoming of her, because the woman that I am now is a byproduct of all the things that I moved through and all the things that I tried and, and that worked, and that I even, created my own methodology to now be the woman that I am now and to be in the stage of embodiment and integration, which is the fourth stage. And so the first stage is the moment where things are beginning to crumble and shit's hitting the fan. Then you have the moment where you just go down into rock bottom and it's just a pile of death. And then that's really dramatic. And then the next stage is when you are remembering and reconnecting and beginning to build yourself again. And in that building in stages, that's where I'm going to record the podcast where I share with you like what got me back from that, what practices and masculine structures and energy things, like what are the non-negotiables that I began to live by in order to get my energy, my body, my mind back on track. So I'm going to make that super, super fun episode. So if you're interested about how to rebuild yourself, and even if you're not going through something as deep as what I'm describing right now, I always go back to these basics when I am accessing a new level, when I know that I'm going through deep transformation, when I am, like, for example, if I just left a relationship and I'm going to go into my next era, or if I am breaking through new levels in my business, or if I am going into a new, just a new version, a new level in my life and in my business, I always go back to this, because how do you feel and how you take care of yourself impacts your energy, impacts your mind, impacts everything. Like you are the most important asset in your life and in your business. And so I'm going to share an episode on that, like what I used in order to connect with myself and regain my energy, my power, my connection to self, my connection to my purpose, all of that. And the last stage is the stage of integration, which is the stage what I am now, which is, I was telling my friend, and also I'm going to talk about this stage a lot more in that other episode that I mentioned, which is the episode about how to access your next level, or how to embody your next level without forcing it. So I will talk about this a little bit more in that episode, so this one doesn't get too long. But I was talking to my friend the other day and I was telling her, like, you know what it feels like? It feels like, when you just bought shoes and those shoes are new, but they're yours. Like you're wearing them and they're new and they're your shoes. But the first time that you wear new shoes, they feel a little uncomfortable. Sometimes they give you blisters because you're like, wait a minute, what the heck is going on? Like, I am not used to walking in these shoes. Sometimes you need to adjust your posture, or you need to like be a little bit more mindful where you're walking, or you get to like walk them for a little while and then you need to take a break. That's how it feels when you're going through that stretch phase, which is the stretch phase of embodiment. There is a difference between being embodied and the process of embodiment. And so integration is the process where I'm integrating all of the things that I've learned in the last year and a half, 2 years. I'm now beginning to walk in those shoes. They're my shoes. This is me. It's what it is. But it doesn't feel like the shoes that I've been walking forever. A lot of things feel really new. A lot of things sometimes feel really uncomfortable. And this is where I see a lot of people stop. You get to the stage where you're about to stretch, when you're about to embody, because after you're stretching, after you embody these things, then you're embodied. And that's where we're going to get to. And a lot of people stop here because this is stretchy phase and this integration phase feels a little bit uncomfortable too. Because even though you already have the knowledge and you are really aware of things, there is things that can easily pull you back. Like your mind can pull you back, your body and your sensations and your emotions can pull you back. And so that's why I wanted to do a whole episode about how to navigate this stage of integration, because it's so key and so important when it comes to really truly ending that cycle of transformation and getting to walk as the embodiment and the embodied version of the women that you have become through this transformation. And so that's a whole other thing that I will talk about on the other episode. Anyway, thank you so much for being in this episode. Like I said, I think I'm going to do her probably a part two of these episodes in a couple of months when I feel like I've gathered even more insights. Most of the times when we're moving through something, it's hard to see clearly in the moment. But just because in that moment we cannot see exactly where is this taking us and where is the direction and having all the answers, as long as we are committed to our growth, to loving ourselves, to facing life, to transformation, to evolution, to growth, into taking action in that direction, we are moving forward. And that is the important thing to know through this entire process. And so maybe for you, it's not that dramatic, or maybe it is. Either way, if you connected to this episode and it touched you in any way, send me a message on Instagram. Let me know. Come and join us in the Telegram free group that I have that's called Align as Fuck with Daniela. This is like my most intimate group, and it's completely free, but it's where I share on real time. Like if I have something that's moving through me, I share there. I do a lot of audios. I keep you posted in what's going on in the business and what's moving through. It's like an incredible space of just so much value and staying connected and building that relationship. I also want you to know that in this moment, I am launching a mastermind that's called Destiny. That is a mastermind where I help you align back again with your soul, with your truth. Basically, everything that I shared in this episode, like I really will become that anchor for you to help you see yourself again. Sometimes we need those people around you that, sometimes we need those people around us that reflect that truth back to us, that anchor of helping us remember. And we have blind spots. One thing that I didn't say and that I didn't mention through this episode is that I wouldn't have not been able to go through it alone. I had a lot of support along the way. I am very thankful for my family, for my friends, for the people that care for me, for the support that I've reached out, for the things that I said yes to in these times to be supported while I was moving through what I was moving through. Like, this is not like, oh, I did it by myself and I'm super fucking powerful. Like, I see now that me reaching out for support was a very powerful thing to do. A really powerful thing to do. It's not powerful you just going through it by yourself and suffering for no reason. So reach out. If you're moving through this, get mentorship. If you're moving through this, get somebody that gives you perspective. Let's come and work together if you feel in alignment with that. But you don't have to go through it alone. And also just know that it's temporary and it's not always going to feel this way. So coming back to Destiny, this is a 4-week mastermind that I'm really excited about because we have 2 focus during this 4 weeks together. 2 weeks, we're going to focus on you, meaning your connection to your intuition, your connection to your power, your connection to your channel, your connection to your purpose. And 2 weeks, we're going to focus on your business. First, we focus on your soul, and then we take that strategy and we implement it in the business so that all of a sudden you are leading a business that's true to your core. That is a fulfillment of your life here on earth. That is a fulfillment of your purpose, of your mission, that comes from a strategy that is based on what works for you uniquely. So it's not like cookie cutter strategies or anything that's going to force you into something that doesn't feel in alignment. Like, I help you create a business that is fulfilling from the inside out, and to understand what strategies do work for you, to understand what are your gifts and your skills in business and what we need to double down on for you to upgrade and expand your visibility and your impact. And so it's a beautiful journey. It's called Destiny because of course, it's aligning you to your destiny, aligning your business to your destiny, aligning your life to your true destiny. It's going to be quite a journey. I'm super excited. If you feel the pool to join us, send me a message on Instagram and I'll send you the information on the mastermind and we'll have a little chat about it to make sure that this is the right space for you. Thank you so much for being here and for spending this time together. One thing is I would link the other episode below about the next level without force. And I will also link the Telegram free group if you are desiring to stay together and to stay connected and to hear more of this. I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon again in another episode.